I am very excited about WrestleMania 38 because when you look at it on paper, we have some truly fire matches that really should be awesome. We of course get Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. I can certainly see Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. I'm hoping everything deep down in my tootsie toes. We get Edge versus AJ Styles and Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. And this is before I even get into the rest of the roster. So that will be some good eating or some good wrestling. But given that WrestleMania is 2 days this year and a few foibles that have happened recently, WWE is playing a very dangerous game with their biggest show of the year. Why? Here's why. Now this actually ties back into something that Kurt Angle said on his podcast a few months ago, when he said back in the day, way back when he was in WWE, WrestleMania was basically planned 6 months out. Then when he left TNA and he returned to the World Wrestling Federation, it wasn't called that then, but you know what I'm talking about, for round 2, all of a sudden we weren't doing this anymore, and sometimes we could be really close to WrestleMania, and still nobody really knew why this was happening, and Kurt especially thought this was kind of crazy. And he absolutely wasn't wrong, and it all comes down to story and the fact that every single story that's ever been invented needs to have a good ending. Now, of course, you need to have a solid opening to get people interested, and everything in the middle needs to make sense. But if you get to the finish and you piss a bunch of people off, it doesn't matter what came before it because that's all any individual will remember. Like, for example, back in the late 90s when we found out that the higher power was Vince McMahon. I would put my hood up, but it will screw up the microphone. And while it did give us, "It was me, Austin, it was me all along," which is one of the best lines in wrestling history, most people went, "Oh, man, Vince McMahon." And also, when you tried to figure it out, my gosh, it made no sense. This wasn't so bad because it was just some random narrative on Raw, but when you get to the granddaddy of them all, you want to have a baseball bat and you want to be smashing home runs all over the place. So when you hear that Shane McMahon was meant to take on Seth Rollins, and now Shane McMahon isn't even figured into plans anymore because of all that controversy apparently that happened at the Royal Rumble, you start to scratch your head and go, well, wait a minute, clearly that was considered to be a big match. So now what the flub are we going to do? And sure, nobody could have accounted for that. Nobody knew that all of that was going to go down. But it still means that like 8 weeks out from WrestleMania, one of the biggest stars in the company, him known as Seth Rollins, does not have a guaranteed match. I mean, that just seems nuts. And of course, it gets me excited because I'm like, Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens. That would satisfy me deep down in my tootsie toes. But I would rather the creative team was able to set some serious plans, as we have just talked about, and then create a tremendous story that goes a little bit left, it goes a little bit right, it goes a little bit up, it goes a little bit down. It just takes us on a fantastic roller coaster and then culminates at WrestleMania. I mean, it's like looking at a map and saying, well, we want to go to Australia, so we're going to head west. And you're like, no, you need to go east. You're going to end up in America if you do that. And by the time you get to New Orleans, you don't have a flubble sticks what's going on. And look, I completely understand that we actually didn't know that Shane McMahon was going to take on Seth Rollins. There was nothing on the TV to hint to that, so we can move past it. But it's a very different situation when it comes to one Ronda Rousey. Now we have jumped down this poor woman's throat before we've given her a chance to do anything, but one reaction I do agree with is when we found out that it was going to be Ronda versus Charlotte Flair at the Showcase of the Immortals, because it was a bit like, yeah, look, that will be good, but can't we do something else? And again, look, that one will be a banger, but from a storyline perspective, what we all wanted was Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch, because that ties into their WrestleMania match from a couple of years ago. It ties into the fact that Ronda was the champion and now Bex is still the champion. And we're not doing it because that's literally all I got. And the rumors state that WWE has actually thought about this and they plan to do it at WrestleMania 39. But this is WWE. It wouldn't surprise me if we got to 2023 and they just give up wrestling and become a fishing company. They're like, oh man, buy our fishing rods and buy our bait, eat this fish, put it in your mouth. I mean, you really do just never know. So what happens is when we do get to night one, where I believe Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey will main event, you may get some people shrugging their shoulders because they wanted something else. And this also ties into Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Brock Lesnar, there's nobody called Brock Resner. Now the numbers do tell us differently because every time these two clash, they go up, so you can't argue with that. But still, they have fought like 2 or 3 times over the last few months, and when it gets to Mania itself, if it does go down to 38, this will be the third time these two have headlined against each other, which actually blows your brain when you think about it. I mean, the law of diminishing returns has to come into play, as it does in all walks of life, and WWE is aware of this too, because they keep mentioning title versus title. Now, I actually don't think we're going to head in that direction, but the whole reason that it's being teased is because they're going, well, if we do Universal Championship versus WWE Championship, that's another way to package this up and sell it. But eventually you've just got to realise we've sold it enough. And none of these will result in bad matches unless somebody's having an off night. They are all tremendously talented individuals. But do not forget, WrestleMania is a 2-night event now, which means you've got to pack it up with a bunch of goodness, especially when you start talking about the undercard. And we have spoken a lot how WWE desperately needs to build new stars, because at the moment you have a bunch of guys and girls that are just all in the same place. And when you potentially have 10 hours of content that you're going to put out over a weekend, well, that doesn't smell very good to me. I mean, the last thing you want is some Mania matches to feel like they could be on Raw, which means we need to start telling these stories, and we need to start telling them now. And when you remember that when it comes to Monday night, sometimes it is a little bit of a swing and a miss, well, maybe this isn't the best thing when it comes to your brand new premium live event. Thankfully, we do have RK Bro, so whatever they do is absolutely going to rock. I mean, you could pull the trigger and split them up and have them have a one-on-one contest, but if I keep everything crossed again and we can actually hold off doing the Alpha Academy match for the Raw Tag Team titles, I am going to be so pleased, because these 4 guys have been absolutely brilliant recently, and they deserve a match on the biggest stage of them all. But this is pretty much the first properly expanded WrestleMania we've ever done, because when you go back to last year's, you have to give it a free pass, because we were coming out the other end of a flipping pandemic. But that means you got to have all the bells and whistles ready to go, and as I stand here in mid-February, well, it doesn't really feel that way. I mean, you always have to be tighter with your production in order for the people that go back on Sunday after Saturday are still going, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, but WrestleMania, which is half the fun. And that means a bunch of stellar matchups that make you feel all warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum. And I'm not saying that WWE can't do this. I just hope they're not focusing on a couple of marquee matches and forgetting about everything else. So an interesting ride awaits us, but let's face it, when we do get to this couple of days, we're all gonna lose ourselves like Eminem and start jumping around, because that's what we do at WrestleMania season. Then we'll get to Monday and we'll go on the internet and we'll moan about it, and then 12 months will pass and we'll do it again, because we're wrestling fans, damn it. And this is how we live. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know, what do you think about WrestleMania 38 Night 1 and Night 2? What matches do you want to see? And how would you balance out the card if you were indeed in charge? And don't say anything stupid. Keep it realistic. Then like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com, where we will keep you up to date with all the WrestleMania plans. We have a bunch of other YouTube videos. Go and watch them, some of which will be about WrestleMania. And we're on social media. We'd love to see you. Come give us a follow and come say hi. My name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always. And seriously, I'll throw a name out there right now. Bobby Lashley. He is the WWE champion as I'm saying these words. And if somebody barged in here right now and put a gun to my head and said, Simon, you have to tell me who Bobby Lashley is going to fight at WrestleMania, I'd be dead, because I can't think of anybody. And this is the kind of stuff we need to circumvent right now, especially when we're talking about a champion. Thankfully, nobody is outside. But let's end the video all the same. I like being alive. Goodbye.
Hello there, dear friends. Corporate Cleary here, dressed like a substitute teacher to give you some exciting news. First of all, between now and the 15th of February, that's right, that is the Boxing Day on Valentine's Day, we have 20% off everything. Point 2 is we are going to come up with a brand new shipping method that will not be tracked and will take quite a long time, anywhere between 2 and 12 weeks, but will be a fraction of the cost. Hey! So that is 20% off everything that's currently on the What Culture store, and far, far cheaper shipping methods. Head over to shop.whatculture.com for all of this stuff. It's available there. Anything we sell, 20% off. Go and enjoy. The claw. Sorry, please forgive me. I must deal with a staffing issue. Goodbye.